In the United States, people have been trained to expect too little. The American people have been played.
Played. Self-help legend, spiritual leader, and author of the best-selling A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson, is officially kicking off her second presidential run. She's the first Democrat to challenge President Biden in the 2024 primary, announcing her candidacy over the weekend in Washington, D.C. And she's with me live. Good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I have to ask you first, do you believe the fact that the first contenders for candidacy for both parties, Democrats and Republicans, are women? Does that mean something?
Well, I think it certainly means that women are feeling freer. It's not a big conversation whether or not a woman should run for president anymore. So that's great. I mean, that's different than when I was a child. When I was a child, ooh, a woman is running for vice president. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Many don't want President Biden to run again. According to polls, there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with his performance as commander-in-chief. Why do you believe you have a shot?
Well, first of all, I want to say many of the people who don't want him to run again, or at least want to hear other voices, might not even think he's done a bad job. They just want to hear more voices. Mm-hmm. And why do I think I have a shot? The reason I think I have a shot, first of all, nobody knows who does. I mean, Barack Obama, when he ran, was certainly considered a long shot. President Trump was certainly considered a long shot. So American politics is very unpredictable. I think that the American people are in a different place than we were 4 years ago, than we were 2 years ago. I think COVID has changed things. I think a lot of incidents, such as East Palestine, when you look at the coverage that you did of East Palestine a few minutes ago, people realize that the short-term profit maximization of big corporations are given precedence over their safety and over their health and over their well-being. And even though I think the president addresses that to some extent, I think we need way more than an incremental approach. We need fundamental economic reform that makes this, once again, a government of the people and by the people and for the people, in Lincoln's words, as opposed to of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations.
I want to get more to some of your stance, your platform, your ideas surrounding a couple of big issues for America. But I have to talk about the issue of age. This is a Biden delegate and commentator Lindy Lee talking about your candidacy. Let's listen.
I don't think many people consider her to be a major Democrat, and age is a concern for some for Biden, but she's 70 years old. So she doesn't exactly represent a new generation of leadership either.
Okay, first of all, you look amazing. I thought you were like 45.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Wow. First of all, I need to find out what your secret is, the fountain of youth. But talk about that. For her to mention your age, what world are we living in when people have to mention age at all?
What world we're living in is that she's a shill for the corporate Democrats and that whole machinery that wants to make sure that no one is in the conversation but who they choose. And so they trot her out there. That's what this is about. This is not about age. This is about her coming up with talking points to make sure that the field is completely clear. You know, it's so interesting because democracy is the whole vital core of democracy is many voices. That's the essence of this all. All people are equal. All people's voices matter. So for someone who supposedly is standing up for the values of the Democratic Party to work so hard on media and elsewhere, Twitter, she's all over the place, trying to just minimize my candidacy. That's just what they do. This is politics, and they do it in both parties, and they do it to each other. They do it among each other. That's all that woman is about.
It's so interesting because it's like you look at J-Lo and how much she's been able to accomplish and how youthful she is. And it's like everybody says that, 40 is the new 20 and 50 is the new 30. So you can be a youthful 70-year-old.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But also when you're talking about, when you look at someone like Bernie Sanders, or even look at the age of anyone like that and how much young people loved him, it's about your ideas. And I think I think every age has obviously its challenges, but every age has its wisdom. I think the younger you are, the more you know certain things. I think the older you are, the more you know certain other things. And I think that ageism has no place in our conceptualization of what's important today.
I do have to ask you about at least one issue. If you were president right now, what would you do about crime, surging crime in America today?
I think we have to face how much poverty plays into the genesis of crime. Poverty in America. Remember, we have millions and millions of people who are feeling economically desperate. And when you have this, it becomes like a petri dish out of which all manner of societal dysfunction, including crime, emerges. We have to move away from just treating symptoms. We have to treat cause. If you don't take care of a child today, you're going to need more prisons later. If you don't take care of people's needs today, you're going to have greater mental health crisis later. That's the first thing we need to do in terms of crime. And I do think we need more common sense gun safety laws, absolutely.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.